The dust motes danced in the late afternoon sun, each one a tiny, glittering planet in the quiet universe of my living room. My fingers, tracing the embossed letters on the spine of the newest album, felt like they were touching something sacred. Marcus, age 812. It is a ritual, this documentation. It is my life's work, the one thing I have built with absolute certainty. Every report card, every faded ticket stub from a science museum, every slightly crooked birthday card painstakingly crafted with crayons, they are all here, pressed between acid-free pages, a testament to a life well lived, a son well loved. I am, after all, a librarian by trade. Order is my comfort. History is my anchor. My son's face smiled up at me from a photograph, a gap-toothed grin, his hair a wild sun-bleached mop. That was before the polish, before Lena. The thought was a quiet, treacherous whisper, one I would never give voice to, but it lived in the quiet corners of this house, a persistent chill I could not seem to warm away. Lena is perfect. That is the only word for her. Her blonde hair is always sleek, her clothes impeccable, her smile a calibrated curve that never quite reaches her eyes. She is an architect, and I have come to understand that she approaches life as she would a blueprint, with a need for clean lines, structural integrity, and the removal of any unnecessary ornamentation. Lately, I have begun to fear that my son's past, my history, qualifies as such an ornament. The unease began as a small, cold stone in my stomach about a month ago. It was Marcus's birthday. I had called him, as I always do, first thing in the morning. He had sounded rushed, distracted. "Things are just really busy, Mom. You know how it is." I did know. But I also knew that for 35 years, my first happy birthday had been a cherished tradition. That evening, I had gone to his social media page, a habit I am not proud of but one I cling to nonetheless. It is a window, you see, a way to see the small, daily moments of his life that I am no longer privy to, but his page was gone, just vanished. A page not found error where my son's life used to be displayed. When I finally got him on the phone, my voice was tighter than I intended. "Marcus, your Facebook page, I tried to look at the pictures from your birthday dinner." There was a pause, a soft sigh on the other end of the line. "Oh, right, yeah, Lena and I decided to deactivate our accounts. For privacy reasons, it is just a healthier way to live, you know? Less noise." Noise? The word felt like a betrayal. My weekly scrolls through his photos, seeing him laugh with colleagues, trying a new recipe, those were not noise. They were my connection. They were the thin, vital thread that tied me to the day-to-day reality of my only child. Lena's influence was a subtle poison, convincing him that the open book of his life needed to be closed, locked away, even from his own mother. Tonight is our first family dinner since the great deactivation, as I have come to think of it in my head. I have spent the day preparing Marcus's favorite meal, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the way my mother used to make it. The aroma fills the house, a warm, comforting blanket meant to soothe the jagged edges of my anxiety. I set the table with my good china, the set with the delicate blue forget-me-nots around the rim. A small, stubborn act of defiance. When they arrive, the air in the house shifts. Lena enters first, a vision in a cream-colored sweater and dark trousers. She kisses my cheek, her skin cool and smooth against my own. Clara, the house smells wonderful. Her compliment is perfect, like everything else about her. Marcus follows, his hug warmer, more substantial, but I feel the tension in his shoulders. "Hi, Mom." He looks tired, the kind of tired that sleep does not fix. We settle around the table, the steam from the pot roast rising between us. For a few minutes, there is only the sound of clinking silverware and polite conversation about traffic and the unseasonable warmth. I grasp for a thread, anything to pull Marcus back to me. "Marcus," I say, a little too brightly. "I was organizing the albums this afternoon. I found the one from your first science fair. Do you remember? Your volcano. You were so nervous it would not erupt." A genuine smile breaks across his face, the first real one of the evening. "Oh, I remember. I used way too much baking soda and vinegar. It erupted all over the gym floor. Mr. Henderson was not amused." I laugh, the sound easing the tightness in my chest. "You were so proud. You said it was a catastrophic success. You had just learned that word." "I did," he says, his eyes softening with the memory. "I was so." "It is fascinating," Lena interrupts, her voice a smooth, cool blade slicing through the warmth of the moment. She dabs the corner of her mouth with a napkin. The things we cling to from childhood. It is almost as if we need to validate that time by giving it undue significance. She turns her gaze to Marcus, a gentle, patronizing smile on her lips. The past is just a rehearsal, is it not? The real performance is now. The room grows cold. Marcus's smile falters, replaced by a look of uncomfortable neutrality. He looks down at his plate. I do not think of it as a rehearsal, I say, my voice quiet but firm. I think of it as a foundation. Lena's eyes meet mine, and for a fraction of a second the polished veneer cracks, and I see something hard and calculating beneath. A foundation is only useful if what you are building now is worth supporting. Otherwise, it is just dirt. She turns back to Marcus, her voice softening into a coaxing tone. Darling, you were just a child then. Your life did not truly begin until you started making your own choices, building your own future. With me. The words hang in the air, toxic and absolute. Your life did not truly begin until me. She was not just dismissing a childhood story, she was erasing it. She was systematically dismantling the foundation I had spent a lifetime building, brick by brick, memory by memory. The pot roast suddenly tastes like ash in my mouth. This is not about privacy. It is not about a healthier lifestyle. It is about control. Total, absolute control. She is rewriting his history, and in her new version, there is no room for a sentimental mother with her photo albums and her clinging stories. The rest of the dinner passes in a blur of polite, stilted conversation. I move through the motions of clearing the plates, of offering dessert, but my mind is reeling. I watch them together. I see the way Lena's hand rests on Marcus's arm, a possessive gesture that seems to say, he is mine now. I see the way he defers to her, the light in his eyes dimming whenever she speaks. As they prepare to leave, Lena excuses herself to use the restroom. Marcus and I stand by the front door, an awkward silence stretching between us. The house feels enormous and hollow. Mom, he says softly, not meeting my eyes. About the social media thing, Lena is right. It is better this way, less distraction. Distraction from what? I ask, my voice barely a whisper. He just shakes his head, a sad, vague gesture. From everything, from building our future. When Lena returns, she links her arm through his. Ready, my love? They say their goodbyes, and I watch from the doorway as they walk to their car, a perfectly composed couple under the muted glow of the street lamp. I close the door and lean against it, the silence of the house pressing in on me. My eyes drift to the bookshelf, to the row of meticulously labeled albums. They suddenly seem like artifacts from a lost civilization, a history that someone has decided is obsolete. The cold dread that has been simmering inside me all evening solidifies into a terrifying certainty. This is only the beginning. The deactivation was not the endgame, it was the first move. And as I stand there in the profound quiet, I understand with a chilling clarity that Lena is not just building a future with my son. She is methodically dismantling his past. And if I do not find a way to stop her, I will lose him completely. The battle for my son's soul has been declared, and I did not even know I was on a battlefield until the first shot was fired. The digital world has never felt so cold. I was holding my phone, my knuckles white, the screen glowing with the text message from my niece Emily. Her words were simple, a cascade of panicked youth. Aunt Clara, what is happening? I cannot find any of the old photos. The ones from the beach, my birthday party, they are just gone. And it is not just my account. It is all of them. Every photo you ever tagged Uncle Marcus in. It is like he was never there. The air left my lungs in a painful rush. It was not a glitch. It was not a mistake. The dread that had been coiling in my stomach for weeks, a silent, slithering fear, now struck with the force of a physical blow. My brother was being erased. The drive to Marcus's house was a blur of twisted streetlights and distorted shadows. I did not call ahead. I could not. Words would have failed me, or worse, they would have given him time to prepare another placating lie. I needed to see his face. I needed to see the truth in his eyes before he could hide it. My hands were clenched on the steering wheel, my mind racing through a slideshow of the very images that had been wiped from existence. Marcus holding a toddler Emily on his shoulders, her small hands tangled in his hair. Marcus, his arm slung around a teenage me, both of us grinning with ice cream smeared on our faces. Marcus, with our parents, his smile so wide and genuine it could light up a room. Each memory was a brick in the foundation of who he was, and someone was systematically tearing that foundation down. I knew who. I knew it with a certainty that made my blood run cold. His house, the one he had bought with Lena 2 years ago, looked different tonight. It was not the warm, welcoming place it had once aspired to be. Now, under the stark, unforgiving glare of the motion sensor floodlight, it looked like a fortress. The manicured lawn was perfect, the hedges trimmed into severe, geometric shapes. There were no stray toys, no forgotten gardening tools, no signs of the easygoing chaos that defined a lived-in life. It was sterile. It was Lena's domain. I rang the bell, the chime echoing inside with a hollow sound. I could hear a muffled voice, then footsteps. The door swung open, and there he was, Marcus. But it was a version of my brother I did not recognize. The man who stood before me was pale, his eyes shadowed by deep, purplish bruises of sleeplessness. His shoulders were slumped, and he was clutching a glass of water so tightly I thought it might shatter. He looked like he had been fighting a war inside his own head and was losing badly. "Clara," he breathed, his voice ragged with surprise and something else, something that sounded like fear. "What are you doing here? It is late." "We need to talk, Marcus," I said, my own voice steadier than I felt. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. The air in the house was still and heavy, smelling of lemony polish and something floral, an expensive but cold perfume. "It cannot wait." He closed the door slowly, his movements sluggish as if he were moving through water. "What is it? Is it Mom, Dad?" "It is you," I said, turning to face him in the cavernous, minimalist living room. There were no family photos on the walls, only abstract art in chrome frames. "Emily called me. She was looking for the pictures from her 6th birthday party, the one where you dressed as a pirate and let all the kids sword fight with inflatable sabers." I watched his face carefully. A flicker of pain, quick and sharp, crossed his features before he could suppress it. He looked down at his water glass. "She could not find it, Marcus. She could not find any of them. Every single picture from our childhood, from our life, every photo I ever tagged you in, they are gone. Vanished. You tell me, what is happening?" He would not meet my eyes. I do not know what you are talking about. Maybe it is a privacy setting, the algorithms." "Do not," I snapped, the word cutting through the sterile air. "Do not insult my intelligence. This is not an algorithm. This is a purge. Look at me, Marcus." He finally raised his gaze, and the sheer helpless despair I saw there terrified me more than any anger could have. This was not the strong, confident brother who had taught me how to ride a bike. This was a ghost. "She made you do it, did she not?" I pressed, my voice dropping to a horrified whisper. "Lena." The sound of her name was a trigger. His composure cracked. A tear escaped and traced a path down his cheek. He did not bother to wipe it away. He just stood there, crumbling in front of me. She said it was for the best." His voice was so low I had to lean in to hear him. "She said our life together, her life and mine, it was being held back by the past. By you, by Mom and Dad. She said I was clinging to a shadow, that my old family was an anchor." He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "She told me, your life started when you met me. Everything before that was a prologue. It is time to close the book." The words hung in the air, monstrous and absolute. I felt a nausea so profound I had to steady myself against the back of a sleek, uncomfortable-looking sofa. "An anchor?" I repeated, the disbelief a hot ache in my throat. "We are your family, Marcus. We are your history. We love you. How could you let her say that? How could you agree to it?" "I did not agree," he burst out, a sudden flare of the old Marcus shining through the cracks. "But she has a way of making things sound so logical. She said it was a necessary step to build our new future. A clean slate. She said you all would never understand the man I am becoming." "The man you are becoming?" I shot back, the anger finally overriding the hurt. "This is not you becoming anything. This is you disappearing. You are letting her hollow you out, Marcus. You are letting her erase the very things that made you who you are. Do you even hear yourself?" The smooth, calm voice came from the doorway to the hall, and it was like a bucket of ice water had been poured over the both of us. "The things that made him who he are, Clara, are the very things that were holding him back." Lena stood there, perfectly poised. She was wearing a silk robe, her hair flawless, as if she had been preparing for this moment instead of sleeping. Her expression was not angry. It was placid, analytical, as if she were observing a mildly interesting experiment. "This is a private conversation," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "Anything concerning my husband is my concern," she replied, gliding into the room to stand beside Marcus. She did not touch him, but her presence alone seemed to physically shrink him. The brief defiance I had seen moments ago was gone, replaced by a weary resignation. He looked at the floor again. "You had no right," I said, turning my full fury on her. "You had no right to make him delete his past. Those photos were not just his, they were ours. They were memories of our parents, of our life together." "They were artifacts of a life he has outgrown," Lena said, her tone chillingly reasonable. "Marcus is on a new path, a path of success and clarity. That path requires focus. It requires letting go of sentimental attachments that serve no purpose but to foster regret and dependency. I am helping him build a future, Clara, something you and your family seem incapable of understanding. You would rather he remain the same simple, small-town boy forever." I gaped at her. The sheer audacity, the cold-blooded calculation of it all left me speechless. I looked at Marcus, pleading with my eyes. "Fight back," I begged him silently. "Say something. Defend us. Defend yourself." He cleared his throat. The sound was small and weak in the vast, quiet room. He looked from me to Lena, and in that moment, I saw the battle fought and lost behind his eyes. The cost of disagreeing with her was a price he was no longer willing to pay. "Clara," he said, his voice flat and empty. "Lena is right. It is for the best. You need to respect our boundaries. You should go now." The words did not feel real. They were like stones thrown at a statue, landing with a dull, heavy thud. My own brother was choosing her. He was choosing this sterile, heartless existence over the messy, loving family that had always been his anchor, his foundation, his home. The fight drained out of me, replaced by a grief so profound it was a physical weight on my chest. I looked at the two of them standing together, a united front against the past, against me. I nodded slowly, turned, and walked to the door without another word. There was nothing left to say. As I stepped out into the cool night air, the door clicking shut behind me with a sound of finality, I heard it. A sound so faint I almost thought I had imagined it. It was the sound of my brother, the man who had been erased, beginning to weep. The sound was swallowed almost instantly by the hum of the central air conditioning, and I was left alone in the silence, with the terrible, unfolding realization that this was only the beginning. The cardboard box sat on the kitchen table like a coffin. It was a plain, brown thing, the kind meant for moving, for transitions, but this was not a move. This was a burial. Ray had brought it over, his presence a quiet anchor in the storm of my grief. We did not speak much. We did not need to. The air was thick with the ghost of my son, the one I had raised, the one who was now gone. "Are you certain you want to do this, Clara?" Ray's voice was soft, a careful intrusion into the heavy silence. I nodded, my throat too tight for words. I was not certain. I was the opposite of certain. But it was a ritual that felt necessary, a physical act to mirror the emotional severance. I opened the lid of the box. The smell of old paper and dried glue wafted out, a scent from another lifetime. The first album was on top, its cover a faded blue with a cartoon rocket ship. Marcus had picked it out himself when he was 6. My fingers traced the dust on the vinyl. I opened it. There he was, a gap-toothed smile, covered in chocolate cake on his 7th birthday. My heart clenched so violently I thought it would stop. I could hear the echo of his laughter, the squeal of delight as he blew out the candles. Ray placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "He is still that boy, Clara," he murmured, "somewhere under all that confusion." But I was not so sure. That boy would never have let a stranger erase him. That boy would have fought. We worked methodically, lifting the heavy albums from the shelf where they had lived for over 20 years. Each one was a weight in my hands, a year of our lives, a chapter of his. The trip to the Grand Canyon. His high school graduation, his face a mixture of pride and awkwardness in the oversized cap and gown. The first time he brought Lena home, his arm around her waist, a possessive gleam in his eye that I had mistaken for love. I placed the last album, the one from his college graduation, into the box. The shelf was bare now, a stark, empty scar on the wall. Ray sealed the box with packing tape. The finality of the sound, that sharp ripping noise, was like a door slamming shut. We carried the box down to the basement, placing it in a corner behind an old armchair. It was not thrown away. I could not do that. But it was put away, out of sight. A symbolic burial for a relationship I believed was lost forever. Months bled into each other. The seasons changed outside my window, but inside, a perpetual winter had settled. I existed in a state of suspended animation, going through the motions of life. I would find myself staring at my phone, the blank screen a constant reminder of the silence. The digital frame on the mantelpiece remained dark. I had unplugged it. I could not bear the emptiness. Then the call came. It was Ray, his voice uncharacteristically strained. "Clara, you need to sit down." A cold dread trickled down my spine. "What is it? Is it Marcus?" "It is about Marcus," Ray said. "Lena left him. She took the baby and she is gone." The story spilled out in a rush. Lena had drained their joint accounts. A friend of Marcus's from work had called Ray, saying Marcus had shown up at the office a wreck, barely coherent. The friend had pieced it together. Lena had been systematically isolating Marcus for years, not just from us, but from all his friends. The deletion of the photos was merely one tactic in a larger campaign of control. She had convinced him that his past was a weakness, that his family was holding him back. She had wanted him entirely dependent on her, a clean slate she could write upon. And when she had what she wanted, a child to anchor him further, she had found a new source of provision and vanished. I felt no satisfaction in hearing this. The vindication I had expected was absent, replaced by a profound, aching sorrow. My son had not rejected us. He had been stolen from us, brainwashed and broken. It was late that evening, the rain lashing against the windows, when the doorbell rang. The sound was so foreign, so unexpected, that it startled me. I peered through the peephole. And there he was. Marcus stood on my porch, drenched and shivering. He was a ghost of the man I had seen months ago. His shoulders were slumped, his face pale and hollowed out. He looked like a lost little boy, not a 30-year-old man. He clutched a small, wet duffel bag as if it were the only thing tethering him to the earth. My hand trembled as I unlocked the door and pulled it open. The wind whipped rain into the entryway. We stood there, frozen, the space between us filled with all the unsaid words, all the pain of the last year. "Mom," the word was a choked whisper, a sound torn from the deepest part of him. It was the first time he had called me that in over a year. I did not know what to do. The anger was still there, a hard, cold stone in my gut. But seeing him like this, so utterly broken, it began to crack. Can I come in?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the storm. I stepped back, a silent invitation. He shuffled inside, dripping water onto the welcome mat. He would not meet my eyes. The silence stretched, taut and painful. "She is gone," he finally said, staring at the floor. "She took everything. She took Eli." His voice broke on his son's name. "I heard," I said, my own voice flat. He finally looked up, and the raw agony in his eyes was almost too much to bear. "She made me do it, Mom. The pictures. She said it was a test. She said if I truly loved her, I would prove it by letting go of my old life. She said you were trying to control me, that the albums were a way of keeping me a child." He ran a hand through his wet hair, a gesture of desperation I remembered from his teenage years. "I was so stupid. I believed her. I let her erase me. I let her erase you." The confession hung in the air. I saw it all then, not as a betrayal, but as a tragedy. He was not the villain of this story. He was another victim. The anger inside me did not vanish, but it transformed. It melted into a grief so vast it threatened to swallow me whole. "I am so sorry," he whispered, and the tears began to fall, mingling with the rainwater on his face. "I am so sorry. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not deserve it, but I had nowhere else to go." He was waiting for me to speak, to condemn him or to send him away. I looked at my son, this broken man standing in my hallway, and I saw the little boy with the chocolate cake smile. I saw the unbroken line that connected us, a line that no deletion could ever truly sever. It was not stored on a server or in a photo album. It was carried in the heart, a living, breathing history. I took a step forward, then another. I did not embrace him, not yet. The wound was too fresh for that, but I reached out and placed my hand on his cold, wet cheek. "The past is not in those pictures, Marcus," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It is in here." I touched my own chest over my heart. "And it is in you. It is in the way you laugh, the way you furrow your brow when you are thinking. It is in the stories we tell. We can never get those images back, but we can start new ones." It was not a declaration of full forgiveness. That would be a slow process, a careful reconstruction, but it was a beginning. It was an acknowledgement that the story was not over. He nodded, a sob escaping him, a sound of both relief and profound shame. "I would like that," he managed to say. "I would like that more than anything." I led him into the living room, away from the storm outside. The hard work of rebuilding would start tomorrow. But as I handed him a dry towel, I noticed him glance toward the mantelpiece, at the dark, empty screen of the digital frame. A shadow crossed his face, a flicker of something unspoken, a reminder that some ghosts were not so easily laid to rest. The reckoning was over, but a new unease had taken its place, quiet and waiting.